Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And happy Saturday evening. I today was fortunate enough to attend it was a virtual sobriety training, like workshop about life skills. And the focus today was urges and riding the wave of urges. And I learned something a little bit about myself during this training. And I'm kind of laughing. I maybe, I shouldn't be surprised because that's why I show up. That's why I go to these things because there's always something more to learn. And so today, what I went to the workshop with was some thinking problems. So the guy opened up with like, introduce yourself, talk about what it is you came here for today. So I shared um that I can't get enough, really. I've lately been very absorbed in um what happened in my old neighborhood several days ago. I guess maybe it's been a week now. There was a fire in the neighborhood that I moved from, and there was a woman that passed away. And I have been so just mentally, I have this problem, this thinking problem, where I put myself in the shoes of the person who it was the victim. And I do it all the time. I've been doing this since I was a little girl. And I have actually a poem that I wrote, and I remember mentioning this once before in my podcast. There's a poem that I wrote that is about a young girl who passed away it was like a carnival ride. And I wrote this poem about because I can't get my mind to stop thinking about like putting myself in that person's shoes and thinking about what that must have been like. Um, and the same thing, I've been doing this about this poor woman who passed away in this fire. And I know the solution is to share about it. And initially, I was like, I don't want to talk about it because I don't want other people to feel what I'm feeling. And what I realized is that other people's feelings are not, to a point, are not my responsibility. I can't isolate or stuff this if it's doing me harm. I need to share about it. So I need to take care of myself. And when I tell somebody something, this is kind of what I meant. When I tell somebody something, it's, I assume they're going to feel what I feel. And that is not true. Nobody's ever going to feel exactly what I feel. And it's not my responsibility what they feel. So, you know, that of course has borders where I need to treat people so that I don't make them feel bad. But this is just like something that's bothering me that I need to talk about and not try to own everybody else's feelings. So I talked about it in a couple meetings, or one meeting, I think, one AA meeting. And then I talked to my mom about it yesterday, and she she gave me good advice. I mean, it's really a matter of like telling somebody and having them like reconfirm for me that it's okay for me to stop thinking about it. Like when I've told you this before, when people pass away, I feel like the world should stop. And what ends up happening is I stop and I don't move on. And I just talked about that recently. I just talked about grief. And this is another form of it. Um, so I went to this training today talking about this is what's going on in my life right now. This is where my brain is. And I have a hard time letting go. And so um, I can always use hearing more about life skills. And what the guy ended up talking about was how urges, we think of drinking when we're thinking about urges, but there's also these thinking urges, like reactions. I would call them reactions. But like when I get angry, this is what I do. When I get sad, so mine was when I get sad, this is what I do. When I hear something sad, this is what I do about it. And so I shared and said, I tend to just sink into that sadness and I start feeding it. I mentally feeding it. I try to live, like mentally live the experience that I heard about in the story about somebody else's passing. And throughout me like thinking this through as he was talking about urges, what I realized is this tendency for me to sink into my sadness and feed my depression is old behavior. It's old alcoholic thinking. And I didn't realize it until today. So I'm so happy that I showed up and found this out about myself that this is something that has always been, and it's something that would feed my alcoholism. It was something that, like, the drinking would would almost like exponentially sink me in to the sadness. And that's what I wanted. That's what my depression wanted. So the sadness, what he said today that I could totally identify with was that he was talking about how our behaviors reinforce our emotions. So like my sadness is being reinforced when I'm number one, isolating and not telling anybody. So that desire for me to not tell anybody because I don't want somebody else to feel as bad as I feel about it, that is an excuse to isolate. That's all it is. It's an excuse to isolate. And so isolation is reinforcing my sadness. Everything that I do around isolation is reinforcing my sadness. It's encouraging me. I'm encouraging myself to be sad. I'm ruminating in my depression. I'm telling myself you're right to be sad. it's the right thing for you to be sad. You're doing the right thing to be sad. And then that starts to exponentially grow. And I start thinking, I'm sad. The world is sad. Everybody I tell this story to is going to be sad. And eventually, my brain will tell me, you're sad enough. You're so sad that you need to drink. Like these are triggers. And I didn't realize it until I sat in this workshop today. And I'm so grateful for that. Um, what he talked about was using the triggers as training. If I continue to ruminate on the sadness, I'm not learning anything from the experience. So, what I can do is look at my sadness for this young woman passing away as a training opportunity, because if I don't look at it as something else other than what it is, I I just I will live her last moments over and over and over again in my head. It's terrible, but that's exactly what I do. So, if I look at my remove myself a little bit from her experience and look at, because I'm not doing anything for her by reliving her last moments over and over again. I'm certainly not doing anything for me by reliving her experience, her last moments over and over and over again. So, what I need to do is train myself to, when I hear something like this, to look at it at, this is time to train yourself. This is a time to to pause. What he talked about was like, notice that you've been confronted by a trigger. You're face to face with a trigger. Something really sad just happened. Notice it. Um, Name it. And I talk about naming it all the time. I talk about when we feel something, to name it. Like it does so much for me to call it what it is, whatever feelings that you're feeling, like jealousy, is always a good one that I bring up, but anger, loneliness, all of these things, like if you call it what it is, then you can start breaking it down, almost like one of those word maps. If you've ever seen those, we used to do those in my job in the marketing department. We would use those for when we were coming up for names of products and stuff. We would have these word maps. Mind map is what I think is the correct name. And so if I can name my emotion, I'm sad for her, then I can break off from that and identify, what is it, what is that sadness making me feel like? It's making me feel like isolating. It's making me feel like the world is a terrible place. It's making me feel like I want to cry. It's making me feel like I want to talk to my mom, and as soon as I start off with naming the feeling, naturally, for me at least, I can start putting a lot of the stuff that's going on between my ears, put words to it. And that is like key for me. What's key for me is getting it from between my ears to my mouth and out. That is what helps my mental wellness, to not keep things between there. Like I envision like a ping pong ball. That's what happens. These thoughts just they stay in there, just ping ponging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, obsessively. And so when I can identify, when I can notice that it's happening, like that's the first step. And he confirmed that for me today. Like it's the first step to just notice it's happening. It's happening. I'm being triggered, and I'm not being triggered to want to drink. I'm being triggered into unhealthy thinking. And unhealthy thinking can lead me down a very, very dark place. So I'm going to notice that it's happening. I'm going to name what it is that I'm thinking, and I'm going to breathe, take a deep breath. And he talked about visualizing, and you all know that's what I do constantly. I'm constantly visualizing. If I can take that ping pong ball that's echoing back and forth in my head, and I can visualize when I open my mouth and talk about it, the ping pong ball escapes, right? It's from whatever Pong, I think, is the game that we played when I was a kid. That was the first game that came out with Atari. No, that was Combat. But Pong, I think, was also another either cheap one or free one, because we played Pong as well. But when I open my mouth, like that's the outlet for that ball to stop ricocheting between my ears. So visualize how that whatever it is that is triggering you, visualize how you let it escape from between your ears, and then refocus. Try to find something else to do or think about. Or I think the answer for me is always to pick up the phone or talk to somebody. A lot of times I'll take my dog for a walk, and that's me. I always envision also, like when I'm obsessing about something, when I go outside, it removes the ceiling from above me, and I can let all of that stuff out of my brain just float away. A lot of visualization, that's what I do. Um, it helps me so that I can like feel like what I'm doing is action. Feel like when I'm letting something go. I've talked about the God box. That's another way of doing it. But if I can visualize letting the the problem thinking go, then it's easier for me to refocus. So today was really it was an epiphany for me, because I don't think I realized in all of this time, the 9 years that I've been sober, I don't think that I realized the connection between that thinking problem that I have, specifically about ruminating over really sad things that happen to people, and my alcoholic thinking. So that's something for me to start working on. And that's exciting. It's for me, it's exciting for me to have, it's like I cracked open another area of my brain, another area of my recovery that I can make stronger. And in turn, that'll make me live better, and it'll help me to be uh, better, provide better support for other people that maybe are going through the hard thing or that are troubled by hard things. So I'm looking forward to maybe ideating on this topic. And it seems like every day, all of my topics like kind of roll out to the next thing and they're all related. So this was a good one. Lately, I've been talking a lot about being more awake and a spiritual awakening and stuff. And this is yet another level of that, getting to know myself even more. And with that, I get to know my fellowship a little more, my higher power a little more, my program a little more, and just continue to try to heal. Um, and I've got another half of my life to learn how to heal so I can live better. So that's all I've got. Thank you so much for listening today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.